Just give it a second. don't address it, otherwise the sneeze goes away, and we don't want that. We want the sneeze out. I want to thank everyone for checking in on my No Shave November beard going on. Your prayers are coveted at this point. Presley, look at your face, man. A lot of prayer happening over there. We'll see if this fills in this year. You never know. Yeah, you think so? Got to get past Thanksgiving. That's when all of those in-between hairs grow in. We are in Genesis chapter 29 this morning. Jacob has been sent away from home. Last week we talked about he took a pit stop somewhere. He laid down to rest. He had this dream about this ladder and angels ascending and descending on this ladder. We had a great discussion. And in chapter 29, he finally gets to where he was going. What he's looking for, right? If you remember, Isaac, his father, sent him off. He says, go see your mother's brother, whose name is Laban. And so he's basically kind of going back to his grandfather, Abraham's old stomping ground, to find a wife. And also, let's get you away from your brother, because your brother wants to kill you right now for taking his birthright and the blessing. So, what an opportune time to go find a wife. So, let's pick it up. In chapter 29, I'll read verses 1 through 10. It says, Then Jacob went on his journey and came to the land of the people of the east. As he looked, he saw a well in the field, and behold, 3 flocks of sheep lying beside it. For out of the well the flocks were watered. The stone on the well's mouth was large, and when all the flocks were gathered there, the shepherds would roll the stone from the mouth of the well and water the sheep, but the stone back in its place, and put the stone back in its place over the mouth of the well. Verse 4, Jacob said to them, My brothers, where do you come from? They said, We are from Haran. And he said to them, Do you know Laban, the son of Nahor? And they said, We know him. He said to them, It is well with him. They said, It is well, and see, Rachel, his daughter, is coming with the sheep. He said, Behold, it is still high day. It is not time to feed the livestock to be gathered together. Water the sheep and go pasture them. And they said, We cannot until all the flocks are gathered together and the stone is rolled from the mouth of the well. Then we water the sheep. While he was still speaking with them, Rachel came with her father's sheep, for she was a shepherdess. Now, as soon as Jacob saw Rachel, the daughter of Laban, his mother's brother, and the sheep of Laban, his mother's brother, Jacob came near and rolled the stone from the well's mouth and watered the flock of Laban, his mother's brother. If you haven't gotten it yet, Laban is his mother's brother. Moses really wanted us to know that. Jacob arrives in Haran. And unlike in our day, again, there's not population signs or clearly marked roads. He was just, hey, we're going east until I hit this place. And so he's asking around, am I here? Am I here? Am I here? And he's like, oh, okay, we have arrived. And not only is he at the well where Laban, his uncle, waters his sheep, he's told that one of Laban's daughters is coming with the flock. And that's what he's here to do, right? Here comes, you can almost picture, right? I don't know how old Jacob is at this point, but as you can almost picture it, a young man, here comes, as far as he's concerned, This is my future bride coming, right? Here she comes with the sheep. And I think it's kind of humorous. He tells the other shepherds, says he's basically telling them, get out of here. go take the sheep out to pasture so I can be here alone. And then wouldn't you know it, I mean, and they're like, no, like we can't go yet. We're waiting on she's coming with the sheep. We need those sheep. So just calm down, man. Rachel arrives with the sheep, and it says that he rolled the stone from the well's mouth and watered the flock of Laban. We got a little showboating going on here, right? What'd you say, Phil?
I didn't say anything.
Okay. Just making sure. Of, a little showboating, a little, let me try to impress this woman here. And Jacob finally has returned to the land of his mother. And Jacob made sure to, make himself come off in the best light possible. A show of strength, a show of kindness to this would-be bride. She doesn't know that she's his would-be bride. And I think this next part, this could be made into, this should be made into a movie, because this interaction is just gold. This is comedic gold here. Verses 11 through 14. Right? Rolled the stone off. Here's Rachel. Then Jacob kissed Rachel and wept aloud. And Jacob told Rachel that he was her father's kinsman and that he was Rebekah's son. And she ran and told her father. As soon as Laban heard the news about Jacob, his sister's son, he ran to meet him and embraced him and kissed him and brought him to his house. Jacob told Laban all these things, and Laban said to him, surely you are my bone and my flesh, and he stayed with him a month. Now, don't get too excited here, right? I don't imagine Jacob is doing like a full sweep her off her feet, dip, kiss thing going on here, because then it says that he, when Laban came and met Jacob, he also kissed him, and so this is more of like a greeting kiss thing going on here. But you have to imagine, even if it is like a, hey, cousin, right? Hug, kiss on the cheek, and then he just starts weeping. What a roller coaster that we're on here, right? Of just this, and I don't know if it's a full-on ugly cry going on here, of I finally found you, you're going to be my wife. Anyways, Rachel's like, I'm out of here. She runs and finds her father. It's like, this guy came, he's crying. He says he's my cousin. What's going on here? This is it's too good. It's too good of a situation going on here. We imagine, just like in any family, Rachel had probably been told about Aunt Rebecca. But it's it's Aunt Rebecca. They live way out there, and so I don't know if they were ever expecting to hear from this side of the family before, but it would be pretty common knowledge. Rebecca married into a wealthy family. They live in a distant country. And with all of that, this kind of strange introduction between Jacob and Rachel, Laban showed initially great hospitality. Not only because of the custom, but because Jacob was his nephew. Laban, though, also would understand, or Laban would know that Jacob would inherit a significant fortune from his father Isaac. That is all the setup for what's going to happen in the rest of the chapter. Verses 15 through 20. It says, Then Laban said to Jacob, Because you are my kinsman, should you therefore serve me for nothing? Tell me, what shall your wages be? Now Laban had 2 daughters. The name of the older was Leah, and the name of the younger was Rachel. Leah's eyes were weak, but Rachel was beautiful in form and appearance. Jacob loved Rachel, and he said, I will serve you 7 years for your younger daughter, Rachel. Laban said, It is better that I give her to you than that I should give her to any other man. Stay with me. So Jacob served 7 years for Rachel, and they seemed to him but a few days because of the love he had for her. Laban just assumes here that Jacob is going to work for him. Now, we don't know Jacob's work experience. We don't really have a resume for him, but we start to get just the smallest inkling here of Laban's character, of just assuming, just kind of right out of the gate, oh, you're here to serve me. What shall your wages be? Jacob was the son of a man of tremendous wealth. Jacob certainly wasn't lazy, but how much hard work and manual labor was he used to? We don't know. Jacob's reaction in this situation, I think, would reveal much of his character, and this demonstrates the principle that you never know what kind of servant you are until others start to treat you like a servant. But we get introduced to the 2 daughters, Leah and Rachel. And it says, in my translation, in the ESV, it says Leah's eyes were weak. Any other translations other than weak?
Mine says tender eyes.
Tender eyes?
Mine says delicate.
Delicate eyes? Anything else? I think some translations have it as dull. What do you take that to mean? Seems like a weird thing to make note of, but like, what does that mean? What does that look like? Wes?
I always had it as a kind way to say that she was homely.
She was homely.
Yeah.
So, would that mean it's more like her eyes were tender, they're delicate, meaning that was like the only nice thing about her? Okay. I didn't write this. Okay. I'm just trying to understand it. Tina?
I always thought maybe she was either nearsighted with astigmatism. Feel like a lazy eye.
Just a
beautiful form and face.
Yeah. There's a lot of speculation about this. I mean, read any commentary and you're going to get a lot of it, of like, well, it could mean this, could mean that. Some think that her eyes were bad and like maybe she couldn't see well. Maybe it was, like there was something really wrong with her eyes, not just being, nearsighted or farsighted. Maybe her eyes were cloudy. Maybe something meant that her eyes were dull, meaning not beautiful, or or like full of life, right? You think about what's the default setting of your face? You ever think about that? You ever think about what do I look like while I'm just driving down the road on an average day? If someone were to look at me, would they assume that I am angry? That I'm happy? That I'm confused? That I'm tired? Anyone ever come up to you and tell you, you look tired? Right? What does that mean? I look bad? I need to smile more? I don't know. A lot of speculation about Leah's eyes here. But I think the general gist of what we're seeing here play out is that to Jacob, Rachel was the epitome of beauty. And Leah just simply wasn't. This is where this starts, and you might think, oh, Jacob, you dog! How dare you? She probably had a fantastic personality. If you'd ever get to know her. Regardless, Jacob liked Rachel. She was pleasing to his eyes. The offer to work 7 years was essentially then a dowry that Jacob was willing to pay. Though Jacob came from a family of great wealth, he left home. He's got no money. He's got nothing to pay for the dowry, and so before he could take a woman in marriage, he had to provide a dowry to demonstrate that he was fit to support a family and to compensate for the taking of the daughter. This was very common back in these ancient times. It's still, little common today of providing a dowry. And I mean, as a man with 3 daughters, I wouldn't mind if that came back. I'll take a goat. I'll take a mule, sure. 7 years was a very generous offer, far and above what a normal dowry would be, and Jacob didn't want to risk refusal on the part of Laban. When Laban saw how badly Jacob wanted Rachel, he knew, though, he could take advantage of him. Verses 21 through 25 says, Then Jacob said to Laban, Give me my wife, that I may go into her, for my time is completed. This is after the 7 years, right? So Laban gathered together all the people of the place and made a feast. But in the evening he took his daughter Leah and brought her to Jacob, and he went into her. Laban gave his female servant Zilpah to his daughter Leah to be her servant. And in the morning, behold, it was Leah. Mine has an exclamation point there. It was Leah. And Jacob said to Laban, What is this you have done to me? Did I not serve you for Rachel? Why then have you deceived me? Why then have you deceived me? Seems like an odd thing to be coming out of Jacob's mouth, right? Even though Jacob waited and the time went quickly because of love. Oh, I have slides here. He wanted Rachel to be his wife, and Laban responded by inviting guests and making this big wedding feast, and then he swaps out Leah instead. Question: how? Right? Obviously, Jacob has been studying these women's faces for a long time. 7 years of Rachel's beautiful, Leah not so much. How could this happen? That's it. In this culture, a veil and not like the, pretty, what's that stuff that looks like a beekeeper? Tool of like, it makes it, looks, it's almost see-through, but it's soft and pretty. Many times, especially on a wedding day, the wife or the bride would be veiled until she was finally alone with her husband in the, we'll call it honeymoon suite. It's basically just a tent that was set up for them to consummate the marriage. Oftentimes, these wedding feasts involved wine. So could Jacob have had been intoxicated, even just slightly? And also, the time for the consummation was also at night. So it was kind of like an old bait and switch here. We assume that Leah was in on the agreement with this because we don't get any indication that she struggled or talked to her dad about it. Yet even if she was not in agreement, she was still under the absolute authority of her father. And Jacob says, "You have deceived me." Anyone ever been swindled before? Anyone have a story to tell about being swindled? I think sometimes.
Swindle, do you remember that?
Oh,
When we tried to build the building.
yes. Man. And we keep talking about it, don't we? I was we've been swindled before, but I think, what was it? $200,000? $225,000? Man. Incredible.
Well, Rachel must have known about it too. That was Rachel.
She's tied up. That's why they needed to make this into a movie, right? This whole thing, right? Like, where was Rachel? Even if Rachel wouldn't have been like, "Father, no," right? Like, Laban still had complete authority over this family, and so whatever he said goes. I remember once, this was back when eBay was just the first thing, and they didn't have all of the rules and regulations that they have now. I wanted to buy the entire season, the complete season of the X-Men, the animated TV show, 90s cartoons on Saturday morning cartoon, because it was like, I felt like as a child, I never got to see the full story. It was like they kept on playing the same 5 episodes for my entire childhood. And so I was like, I'm going to watch this whole thing. And so I was like, eBay, someone was selling the entire collection on DVD. So I was like, I'm going to buy this thing. And I bought it. It might have been like $40. And it showed up to the house. And it was someone, he just like burned a bunch of copies onto just like, DVDs. But there's no packaging. I saw his bad handwriting on these DVDs. I was like, what is this? Like, this was not what was in the picture, obviously. And then just out of spite, I never even watched it. I still haven't seen the end of what happens in the X-Men animated show. So if you're thinking about what does Chris need for Christmas, just putting it out there. The deceiver has been deceived. And this is Jacob, right? Jacob is the deceiver, and someone pulls a quick one on him. Significantly, Laban's deception towards Jacob was similar to the deception that Jacob pulled on his father and his brother Esau. This is an example, a great example, of Jacob reaping what he had sown. Jacob exchanged the younger for the older. Laban exchanged the older for the younger. Galatians 6, verses 7 through 9, it says, "Do not be deceived, God is not mocked, for whatever one sows, that he will also reap. For the one who sows to his flesh will from the flesh reap corruption, but the one who sows to the Spirit will from the Spirit reap eternal life. And let not us grow weary of doing good, for in due season we will reap if we do not give up." When Jacob deceived his brother and deceived his father and cheated his brother, God did not change his plan to choose Jacob to receive the birthright. And instead, God took Jacob to the school of hard knocks here to discipline him with a taste of his own medicine. And I think this shows that our disobedience may not entirely derail God's plan for our life, but it will greatly affect how we end up experiencing it. One might spend 20 years working for someone like Laban, never seeing or never reaping the reward until the end. Was there a hand somewhere? Okay. Verses 26 through 30. It says, Laban said, It is not so done in our country to give the younger before the firstborn. Complete the week of this one, and we will give to you the other also in return for serving me another 7 years. Jacob did so and completed her week. Then Laban gave him his daughter Rachel to be his wife. Laban gave his female servant Bilhah to his daughter Rachel to be her servant. So Jacob went into Rachel also, and he loved Rachel more than Leah, and served Laban for another 7 years. This excuse that Laban uses here is like, oh, didn't somebody tell you? You know, that's just not how we do things around here. I thought you knew. The only reason Jacob accepted this clever trick from Laban was because he had no other option. I mean, Laban's holding all the cards in this situation, and if he wants Rachel, then he's got to do what Laban wants. Laban was a perfect picture of a deceptive manipulator, and he ended up getting exactly what he wanted. Both of his daughters married. So Jacob marries sisters here. Can you imagine? Phil?
Jacob must have had some sense of trueness, though, because he could have gotten Rachel and said, oh, by the way, thanks, I've already worked for her and I'm gone. But he stayed the 7 years after he got her.
Yeah.
And worked for him. So there's some sense of trueness there.
It seems like, I don't know, Jacob is learning. He's not quite there yet because this chapter keeps going. But he is learning here, saying, hey, okay, I didn't read the fine print. Maybe it's on me. I'll work another 7 years. Which, I mean, you think about, I think some part of this is romantic, right? Of, man, even though he got swindled, he's still going to work another 7 years in order to get the woman that he loves, which is great. And I think it's also a great example. I mean, this is the, in talking to young people about, waiting to get married, waiting for love, right? Jacob waited 14 years. Even when things didn't go his way, he still decided to wait. So there's a lot of lessons that we can gain here, but Jacob is still learning. Scott?
Laban is another
Yeah.
Laban, this is just business as usual.
Yeah.
And we might think, oh, this terrible person. Not really. You know, we don't know what happens to him in the end. He has his place in God's plan, and he carries it out.
He's learning. Yeah. Yeah. In the school of hard knocks, here as Jacob is learning, the lessons come quick and often. Jacob decides to marry sisters, which is an interesting choice. I cannot imagine. I feel like having two wives alone, I think, it's so much drama. But when those two women are then sisters, it's not like, oh, we just have this, thing between us three. You also have like, remember that time you stole my doll, or remember that time you pulled my hair, and then like now that's in your marriage too. It's incredible. It's incredible. Forrest, what were you going to say?
Just really impresses me with Jacob. I think he had grown substantially at this point in time because, Laban gave Rachel to him just a week later. So he was essentially gambling, Jacob was gambling his future on this one. And so, he didn't sneak off and, after he got her. He fulfilled his commitment that he had made to serve for another 7 years, and then he stayed on for another 6 after that. So, I think he was showing a level of commitment that's very commendable.
Like I said, he's learning. These last few verses here in chapter 29, though, do not paint Jacob in a good light at all. 31, it says, when the Lord saw that Leah was hated, he opened her womb, but Rachel was barren. God's compassion on Leah is touching. She is, in this whole story, she is truly the innocent party here, right? Dad said, go into this tent. Okay. And then she enters into this marriage now. Her sister's right there too, and she's the pretty one. She's the one that Jacob loves. And it says here, Leah was hated. Whew. Strong. But God can bring comfort and blessing to a wife and meet her needs even when the husband acts in an ungodly manner. In Isaiah 54 verse 5, it says, for your maker is your husband, the Lord of hosts is his name. Husbands are responsible for the care of their wives. That's what we're supposed to do. Yet, when they do not, God can meet the needs of a hurting wife, needs that may be neglected by the husband. God opens Leah's womb, but Rachel is barren. Verse 32 says, and Leah conceived and bore a son, and she called his name Reuben, for she said, because of the Lord has looked upon my affliction, for now my husband will love me. Isn't that sad? I mean, it's just sad. She's like, not only have I gotten pregnant, but I've provided you an heir. Now certainly he'll love me. Reuben means, behold, a son. Jacob, even though he did not love Leah, interestingly enough, was still willing to have sex with her. I think this demonstrates a principle that is still true to this day, that a man will often be willing to have sex completely apart from love. And only a foolish person regards the willingness to have sex as proof of love. Leah was not the first and would not be the last to live under this problem. Way back in the past, in the year of 1995, long time ago. This was almost 30 years ago at this point, right? That's crazy to think about. Anyways, survey taken in 1995 had this question: have you ever had given to men? Have you ever had sex with a woman that you have actively disliked? Think about what the answer is going to be. 58% of the men answered yes. That they had sex with someone that they actively disliked. I mean, there's no defending it, men. We're dogs. We're just terrible. And Jacob, right? Like, we're getting this sense here at the end. Like I said, Jacob, he's learning. He's still got a lot to learn. This is, I mean, us looking at this today, it's reprehensible. But it doesn't end there. Verse 33. It says, she conceived again and bore a son and said, because the Lord has heard that I am hated, he has given me this son also. And so she called his name Simeon. Simeon means hearing or to be heard. Apparently, the birth of Reuben did not turn the heart of Jacob towards Leah. And she was still aware that he did not love her, though he still was willing to have sex with her. The second child born to Jacob through Leah was Simeon. Leah hoped all would notice that the Lord had heard her, not Rachel. Verse 34 says, again she conceived and bore a son and said, now this time my husband will be attached to me because I have borne him 3 sons. Therefore his name shall be called Levi. Levi means attachment. Leah still lived in the hope that her husband Jacob would love her and become attached to her through the birth of these sons. Right? Like, it's just like, man, this is tough. Phil?
I don't know what that word attached means.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Maybe you'll stay around. Yeah. I didn't pick up on that. Yeah, maybe. Maybe like she's kind of like losing hope here, but like maybe, you know, if maybe love is too much to ask for, maybe he'll just be around. Maybe he'll like me, you know? I don't know, but it's just not good. I mean, this is not a healthy relationship. Last verse, verse 35, it says, she conceived and bore again, and bore a son. Then said, this time I will praise the Lord. Therefore she called his name Judah. Then she ceased bearing. Judah means praise. Apparently Leah stopped naming her children to reflect her pain and the longing in her heart, and at this point she focused on God and her praise of him. Leah, though she was neglected by Jacob and despised by Rachel, had a great purpose in God's plan. The 2 greatest tribes came from Leah, not Rachel. Levi, the priestly tribe, and Judah, the royal tribe. And most importantly, the Messiah came from Leah, the less attractive sister who was neglected and despised, but learned to look to the Lord and praise him. Yeah. Guys, we don't come out in a good light here in chapter 29. Jacob definitely does not. But we see God's plan moving and weaving and coming to fruition, even through a story like this. Jacob, like I said, went to the school of hard knocks. He not only did his undergrad there, he re-upped for his postgraduate work as well. It took him 14 years, and Jacob's main subject in the school, what he majored in, was you reap what you sow. Again, Galatians 6, verse 7, do not be deceived, God is not mocked, for whatever one sows, that he will also reap. I think there's 4 principles that we can learn either from Jacob, getting a taste of his own medicine, or in our own lives of experiencing reaping, sowing and reaping. Number 1 is that it applies to everyone. It's not like, oh, only Christians reap what they sow. This is a principle applied to everyone. It's a law of life. Paul says in that Galatians 6 verse, do not be deceived. I think therein lies the root of the problem, is that we can be deceived. That they are either do not believe the truth, or they think that they will somehow be the exceptions to God's law. And to mock God is to turn up one's nose at him, to hope to outwit him. And if you were required to appear before the judgment seat of Christ in the next 5 minutes, what kind of crops would you have to show? Number 2, we reap what we sow. The fact that we reap what we sow is good news for those who sow good habits, but a frightening thought for those currently involved in ungodly activities such as promiscuity, drug and alcohol abuse, neglect of family, or mistreatment of others in order to climb the ladder of corporate success. We cannot sow crabgrass and expect to reap pineapples. We cannot sow disobedience to God and expect to reap his blessing. We reap more than we sow. This is just a general principle of plants and fruit and just how things work. A single seed that sprouts can yield dozens, scores, or even hundreds of seeds. And it's the same way that both sin and righteousness, a small decision to do either good or bad, reaps a much bigger crop for either joy or sorrow. In Matthew 13, verse 23, Jesus says, for as what was sown on good soil, this is the one who hears the word and understands it. He indeed bears fruit and yields, in one case 100-fold, in another 60, and another 30. On the other side of the ledger, the prophet Hosea describes what waits those who choose to sow seeds of wickedness. Hosea 8, verse 7, it says, for they sow the wind, and they shall reap the whirlwind. We reap more than we sow, whether good or bad. And 4, we reap later than we sow. Some are deceived because their present seed does not appear to be producing any immediate crop. So they continue down their course, mistakenly believing that there will never be a harvest. But unlike the crops of the field, which get harvested at approximately the same time each year, there is no regular timetable for the harvest of life. Some crops reap quickly, others take a long time, but do not be deceived, their season will come. Jacob provides us the perfect poster child of sowing and reaping. And besides understanding and learning this story of where Jacob's life is at this point, that's something we can all learn from and we can take to heart. You will reap what you sow. Let's pray, and then we'll be dismissed from our class this morning. Dear Heavenly Father, God, thank you so much for this time that we can look into your word and so vividly receive the lessons that you intend us to have. As we think about Jacob getting a taste of his own medicine here, God, help us to look in the mirror, to see activities, to see behaviors that we have today as seeds that we are sowing. And God, if we do not want to reap those evil rewards, God, help us to change our hearts, help us to change our actions, our behaviors, to do what you want and need us to do. God, please be with us as we enter into this time of worship so that we can sing out songs of praise, of glory and honor to you that you rightly deserve.